There's the agenda. Call the meeting to order. Everybody bow their head for just a moment of silence before we. Amen. Commissioners, I'd like to have the agenda adopted with one change. We'll have a public comment session right after we adopt the agenda before we go into the actual budget. So can I get a motion to change the agenda? Have a motion from Commissioner Fouché to add public comment session before we get into the meat of the matter. So have a second. Have a second from Commissioner Whitmer. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. The agenda is adopted with the addition of a public hearing, public comment section. Floor is open for public comment.
Let it Jean Taylor. You need it for. Okay, it's on. Okay. I appreciate the work that Ben and others have done in a very short amount of time to get a budget together. I know it's not an easy task to do that, but I want to share a few things from a historical perspective this morning, very quickly, or afternoon. For water, a reminder for all of us, water is an enterprise fund and has to pay for itself. Our taxes don't pay for water. So I'm glad you're looking at water rates. It's been a long time since water rates have been increased, and our system is aging and pipes are going to need to be replaced soon, as well as the potential growth in the college and conference center. We may need a tank sometime in the future, and they are very expensive. So we all need to pay our fair share, and that can be determined best by the size of pipe and the amount of water we use. And for us that have on our residential, it'll help us be more conservation minded in our use of water. MSD, as a reminder, we all forget, they increase their fees for 3% every year. And we don't complain about that anymore. It's just a normal increase in our cost of living in Montreat. So I think an increase in water rates would be really beneficial for our community. For the CIP, the pandemic put so many things on hold, and I see you don't have any paving projects in the coming year. From past experience, it's really hard to catch up and fund projects when we have an increasing number of pressing needs. And of course, paving is a huge example. Oklahoma will be paved this year, but if you drive around Montreat, you'll see that Arkansas, Lookout, are in just as bad a shape as Oklahoma. You see Assembly Drive beginning to split at the seams, and I don't even want to guess how much that's going to cost to redo that road. So the CIP is going to need some funding for years to come. I appreciate that you're not including leasing in this budget year. It took a long time to get the 10-year replacement in place. So it was done on a real regular basis with our equipment. So I'm glad to see that you're staying with that 10-year replacement and putting a police car in this year. Salaries. I really appreciate the 5% COLA you're proposing in this budget. Hiring and training new staff is really expensive. Today, a living wage in Buncombe County is $20.10. Many years ago, we made a commitment in Montreat to pay our people a living wage. So I hope you will look at that as you consider salaries. The proposed budget for Buncombe County, they're giving their people a 7.28% raise. Asheville is giving a 5% with a 6% for police. They're having trouble with their police. And then Black Mountain, I think, is also proposing a 5%. But I don't want us to lose any staff. And they're already having to work several jobs. And they can meet and they drive and their gas is expensive because they can afford to live in this area. So they have to live in McDowell County or Parkway. So I would like to say that brings me to taxes. I recognize, as you do, that Montreat has the most expensive tax rate in the county. But we also have the smallest amount that a penny is worth, roughly $30,000. That's 330,000. That's not very much for a penny of revenue. The $277,267 you got for ARPA funds was a welcome addition during your COVID years, but those funds are no longer available. And if you think about it, that would be a 9-cent increase in our budget if you had to put that $277,000 in the budget. And you use those for salaries and things that are a normal part of the budget. So we are behind in, I think, personally, what the budget needs to be. A tax increase probably should have happened in 2018, but nobody likes to raise taxes. But we are a community that has high demand and desires, and we have to pay for them. And we have to put money in the CIP to fund those things in the future, like Assembly Drive. And I think people understand that we have to pay for things if we want Montreat to be the community that we all like living in. So I think we need to raise taxes by about a nickel. But that's my personal opinion and not a popular opinion. But if we're going to sustain our community and meet all the needs that we have, we need to look at that. I just need to encourage you. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thanks, Letta Jane. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on then. Ben,
Yes, sir.
who's going to present the budget?
Well, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'll be glad to get a brief summation of what this proposed fiscal year budget includes, and then we can go from there, either page by page, or line item by line item. I would add that Commissioner Otto is present with us by telephone. Per North Carolina General Statutes, he can comment, but if a vote is taken, he will not be able to participate. So I would remind both the commissioners and Mr. Otto of that. Thank you. Okay. This is King. I can turn his off right here.
Maybe we could just ask him. to move.
Oh,
He just moves.
Ken. Ken.
Yes. Can you mute your phone? There's a lot of background.
Something happened.
Zoom might import you. We just can't. hear you.
Okay. Are we good? Are we good?
Even close.
Okay.
Either.
God, feel like I'm in Las Vegas. Frank Sinatra. Mayor, Commissioners, if you'll allow me, I'll just give a brief summation and then staff will follow your directive in regard to the budget. Looking at this proposed budget for the fiscal year 23-24, in the general fund revenues, it is proposed that the town of Montreat will receive $2,017,851. Per North Carolina general statutes, you have to have a balanced budget. So the general fund expenditures also equate out to $851, I'm sorry. Water revenue is $400,885. Thus, the water expenses is $400,885 for a total budget of $2,418,736. As former Mayor Ms. Taylor stated, a penny on the current tax rate based on the evaluations for the town of Montreat generates approximately $29,069.77. The highlights of this proposed budget, $29,069.77. $69.77.
But what is that? I'm sorry.
That's what 1 penny on the tax rate. Yes, sir. Highlights of this proposed budget includes a 5% across the board increase in salaries or COLA increase. It also includes capital outlay projects such as audio-visual improvements for this from the assembly room, a patrol vehicle for the police department, continued funding for the Texas Road Pedestrian Bridge Project, as well as a skid steer / tractor in the street department, a wood chipper in sanitation, and then in our water department, an upgrade to the automated meters. The total capital improvement projects come out to $252,544. The fiscal year 2023-24 total budget is 0.63% lower than the previous fiscal year budget. Also, the general fund budget for fiscal year 23-24 is 2.72% lower than the fiscal year in 2023. Fiscal year 24, but water fund budget is 11.44% higher than the previous fiscal year budget. And with the accounting that went on per the statute requirements from the ARPA funds, with the monies that we had allocated for spending in this fiscal year, primarily with various projects in the water fund, with the water tank inspection and cleaning, those came in significantly lower than what we had expected. Those funds that we looked at was going to be around $80,000, but with the lower expenditures, we have $117,307 that were ARPA related. However, we have transferred, if you'll recall, those ARPA monies into our general fund, and those monies now are unencumbered for whatever projects that the town may wish to choose to go forward with or to increase the fund balance. So those are available monies.
So they're unencumbered from an ARPA standpoint. Have we put them into an account where they're reserved?
No, sir. What we did is we moved those ARPA monies into the salary line item. And those then money that freed up those salary numbers, then which equates out to the 117,000 that either increases our fund balance or a project that the commissioners may wish to choose to pursue anytime after July 1.
Okay. How are we accounting for that? I mean, if it's just thrown into the checking account, so to speak, the general fund, how are we isolating that 117,000 so that we know what's there and we'll use it appropriately?
Well, the accounting, that's one of the ARPA regulations, that anything other lower than $10 million or under $10 million, you have a wider or a broader range of uses for.
Okay.
And one of those was salary reimbursements.
All right. I understand all of that.
Okay.
So as I understand it, we have no more ARPA requirements because we fulfilled that
That's
with the
correct.
salary. But all we did was a swap. We swapped
Mhm.
ARPA money for salaries, which means the salary money goes into the general fund for us to use as we see fit.
Yes.
What I'm saying or what I'm asking is, how are we accounting? We know that that's
Sure.
reserved.
Yeah.
And it's not in our general checking account. I know if with my own checking account, if I don't remember that I've set aside $1,000 for taxes, I might spend that.
Yeah.
How are we,
Mason,
You know, an accountanese, if you'd got an account number and a separate account that $117,000 is parked in.
They are actually in an ARPA checking account that they had opened. They're still in that account.
okay, so they
Yes,
are
they are
reserved.
separate.
Okay.
Yes.
And
All right.
they are, do we have an account number for them here in this budget? Or we just have, they're not in the budget because they're not being spent?
Yeah.
Right. They're not in the
budget.
budget because they're not being spent.
Okay.
and
they
if
are
we
reserved.
pulled them out in the future, we would just make budget adjustments, correct?
Correct.
You explained it much better than I could have. Thank y'all. That being said, that's pretty much the highlights of this budget. That we can go through departments, line item by line item, and then we'll go ahead and explain that. How would you choose?
Commissioners, what do you want to do?
I'd like to look at it line item.
Okay. Do we want to start with revenues here in the general fund?
Sure.
And you have your information in front of you, which is this year's 22, 23, and then the recommended under the 23, 24. Taxes. That's an increase from 1,210,000 to 1,250,000. That was based on the current valuation and the 99.96 collection rate. Sales tax. A lot of these are, let me say this also, these numbers are a little more conservative. And we try to underestimate revenues and do the opposite with the expenditures, so that hopefully at the end of the budget cycle, the revenues will exceed the expenditures. But sales tax, you'll see there is an increase in from $434,100 to $519,830. That's based on the North Carolina Department of Revenue's estimates of approximately, I believe it was a 6%, 6.3 increase. We modified that somewhat because of the concern with the possible talk of recession. There's a lot of money still out there in the economy, but that we're also guessing that there could be a slowdown from July 1 to next June 30th. Again, you'll see just some slight increases in the DMV taxes. Franchise tax is pretty much the same. Beer and wine is the same. Solid waste disposal tax is a $19 increase. Community service fee, that's the monies that we receive from the MRA. I spoke with Mr. Richard Dubose and Mr. Richard Seals of the MRA. They are expecting a contribution to the town around $43,000 in the upcoming budget, but we tried to just keep it somewhat conservative and left it at $35,000. Interest, it's embarrassing to say the interest on investments is $450, just a slight increase from the previous. PAL bill interest, you'll see that. Building permits, last year was 45,000. We dropped it down to 40,000 just to be conservative. Same with zoning permits. We dropped that from 3 to 1,000. Sanitation fees, we dropped those to $3,750, which was from $6,300. And this was based on actual quarterly billing.
So is our projection for $6,300 for this year way off? It must be if you're only projecting 3,700 for next year.
Yeah. This is based on the quarterly billing at $935 a quarter. backdoor.
So
pick-
have those entities, Christ Community Church, the post office, and William Black Lodge backed off of their services that they're buying from us?
Angie,
So the biggest change, I believe, is William Black Lodge used to pay us for security about $800 a quarter, and they discontinued that service. So I think that's the difference.
thank
The
you.
trash and everything is still being paid for by those entities.
Yeah, the morning school has their own, they don't pay, because they have their own dumpster.
Special
But
pick,
the morning school is separate from Christ Community Church, even though it's an entity.
special pickup garbage, we raised that. And that was based on, again, on the average of 4 special pickups per month at $25 per pickup. The PAL bill grant, that's $45,000 that we receive annually. For a total of $2,017,851. That is revenue in the general fund.
Can I ask why in last year's or this current year's budget, the Powell bill fund balance applied was in that budget? Is it just an accounting
That's,
issue?
no, that's another one of those in those special funds. And we received it. We had 174,000. If you'll recall, we had 174,000 in expenditures last year for resurfacing projects. Actually, it's around 200,000 because of the budget amendment, I believe, in March, April's meeting. So it's revenue that you receive from the special fund. coming in.
Okay, that's a transfer from
Yes,
our
sir.
savings account to,
Yes, sir.
okay.
But to be clear, from the PAL bill fund
Right.
balance. Yeah. And so again, for a total of $2,017,851 in projected revenues. We turn the page to the expenditures in the governing body.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes,
If we go through each line item for each department, we're gonna be here till tomorrow. What if we went to Rachel's summary that she sent out yesterday to
Okay.
us? That shows a department by department summary, which I think is an excellent tool.
okay,
And would you be okay with that?
okay. Under governing body, the previous year was $45,572. It's increased to $50,851. Administration.
And that's a 11.5% increase.
Oh, yes.
11.6.
Okay, thank you.
And what is that primarily?
Auditing services. Ads for the advertising for the new town manager position. Well, Josh, do you want to comment on that? It's what it is. There will be more speakers and visual aids.
So the improvements to the audiovisual system in the community room. The intent of it is we've had several situations. We've had situations in which people would like to bring in their own devices to present a presentation, most recently today, actually. As well, we've had situations wherein I might need more volume on a microphone specifically going to the Zoom, but I can't turn it up because it also turns it up in the room. This plan would also add in a second camera so that while people are giving a public comment or while, say, Barry's presenting up front with the town manager, the town clerk, we can point the camera toward him would show him on the screen as opposed to only showing the board and only showing this front half of the room.
Are you gonna do anything with these microphones? Replace them?
So we're not going to replace the microphones. In fact, most of the equipment that's already here is going to stay in place. The upgrade only accounts for, or the upgrade is accounting for new equipment to add on and to provide greater possibilities with the current equipment and to refine its possibilities.
Are you satisfied with the microphone system in here?
I am satisfied with the microphone system in here, more so. More so what I see needing to be done with it is a greater control over volume and greater control over how I can adjust the volume in the room versus on the live stream.
And this equipment will allow you to do that, make those separate adjustments. So you've got, and that's, we do that in the live stream in our church. We got a different feed that goes to the live stream sound feed than to the room itself. They're two different systems. And I can see if you only have one, you really, it hamstrings you. So,
That is correct.
okay.
Any other questions for Josh? Thanks, Josh.
Again, and the primary reason for the increase is the capital outlay and the advertising and the auditing services. Those are the big. Moving over to administration. Previous year was $471,922. That has a 12% increase to $529,000. And that includes the 5% COLA increase. Also increases in the insurance. Some additional classes and training for both Rachel and Angie that we expect this upcoming year. Also, the cleaning service and mailing service. And that should
Question.
be- Yeah.
When Alex was here, we did COLA, but Alex also had not the discretion, but during the review process during the year to add merit increases to those employees who had merited or warranted increases. Is that still in effect?
We did not include merit in this budget. It's a 5% across the board.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Any questions for administration? There's no capital outlay proposed in the administration department. That's taking place right now. Training is already underway. Rachel, I think you and Angie and Debbie have already participated in some of the training classes from Harris to Tyler Tech. And hopefully that would be completed by the end of this calendar year. That's the training aspect. So moving into public buildings. There was a slight decrease from the previous year of $120,862 to $119,991. And no capital outlay is proposed in public buildings. Police department. There is a 12.5% increase from $439,974 to $494,744. And that also includes a 5% cost of living increase as well as 3% increase for officer certifications. Also, it includes capital outlay of $38,544 for a new patrol vehicle. You'll notice that there is some increase in the maintenance and repair of automobiles of $500. But we also show a decrease in automobile supplies, which is gasoline. When we were preparing this budget last year, gasoline prices were hovering around $4.50 a gallon. Projections were looking at $5 a gallon. However, we anticipate, and this is where we don't have the crystal ball, but we anticipate a more normalization of gasoline prices. So we did drop those somewhat, but not significantly, to reflect the current status of the cost of gasoline and diesel.
David, could you share with us what you're thinking of in terms of the type of patrol vehicle?
Yes, sir. In the past, it had been my intention a couple of years back to look at the possibility of the police interceptor version of a Ford F-150. That way we actually had a legitimate dedicated four-wheel drive vehicle. But these numbers are just based off the normal SUV that we've got right now.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Moving along into the planning and zoning. Again, this is a slight decrease from $94,600 to $91,400, which is approximately less than 3.5% decrease. This includes building inspectors, license and continuing education. We did increase departmental supplies or office expense by $2,000, and that's for the ESRI software that Kayla uses for her planning and zoning, as well as a new computer for the planning and zoning administrator. And then we did increase the training for both the planning board and the Board of Adjustment funding for that. There was an increase with the Land of Scott, our zoning administrators contract. You'll see that there was approximately a $5,500 increase.
It's almost 10%, but did they explain why?
Well, the COLA is one.
COLA, their insurance costs,
And
health insurance, life
FICA,
insurance, all those
retirement.
things.
What kind of COLA are they giving her? Yeah, but what, do you know what their
I'm
percentage?
not certain. I'm
Yeah,
guesstimating about a 5%, but
Okay,
I'm just guesstimating that. Okay, thank you. So again, you'll see that it was a slight decrease from the previous year. And there is no capital outlay. Thank you. Public Works. Previous year was $117,593. It is proposed this year for $133,101, a 13.19% increase. And you'll see that that's primarily the 5% COLA increases. And there is no capital outlay in the Public Works Department. Streets. Again, salaries show an increase of 5%, but the previous year was $624,083. Excuse me. The current proposed budget for the street department is $389,614. That is a 37.5% decrease. Remember, the $174,000 PAL bill made up that difference. So that's why there's a huge decrease in the street department. Street department, of course, has the 5% raises for the employees there.
How many employees are included in that department? Two.
And some of the areas that we did increase the monies were in the road maintenance from 11,500 to 14,000. And that's for gravel, striping, patching, and other miscellaneous costs. We did also include monies for a survey for both right of way and PAL bill mapping. You'll see that in one of the line items. There is capital outlay, two items, $101,000 for the continued or the Texas Road Pedestrian Bridge project, as well as a tractor or skid steer for Barry at $30,000. So total capital outlay is $131,000.
Couple questions on that. Number one, are we not able to encumber the 101,000 that we have in this year's budget? So that we don't have to put it into next year's budget?
We sure can. Yes, sir.
But why then is it in there?
Well, what amount are we gonna encumber out of the 101,000?
All of it? We can't. There's no way of taking it out of this year's budget next year without putting it into next year's budget.
The best way I can see how that would be is either have a specific contract project, because that's what the auditors, I think, would be looking for. Why did you encumber this money? So you have this specific amount.
I'm with you.
Now, if the council wanted to increase that, use these unused monies, which are $101,000, we could take that $101,000 that we will have in our fund balance because we didn't spend it and encumber or budget those monies in the upcoming year. So you'd have $202,000, but you would be pulling $101,000 out of your fund balance.
So we would amend the budget later after the end of this current fiscal year, take the monies out of the fund balance and increase the.
You can do that, or you could budget it from fund balance. Okay? And then
Which is
where
what-
it would show, it just
Which
added
is
to
what you're doing here. The 101.
well, the 101,000.
It's coming out of
Or
revenue.
general
That's coming out of
funds.
revenues from the
It's
two.
not coming out
the
of
two
general
million-
fund, yeah.
2,017,000 and change. It would be my recommendation that you either do it an appropriation from the fund balance. And that's why you have a fund balance. I would just be mindful of what your fund balance is, and I think this council and staff has been conscientious of keeping a solid fund balance based on our ordinance. If it were me, I would probably look when we finally had specific projects and hard numbers, then pull from the fund balance if it exceeded the $101,000 allocated in this existing budget. Because you're already seeing that your budget, knock on wood, barring anything in the next 6 weeks, you're going to have an increase of $101,000. Your fund balance.
And I can just about guarantee that something's going to come up this year that we're going to need part of that money for, something we did not anticipate
So,
nor inspect.
so
But-
keep our powder dry is what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But you have it,
Yeah.
unless something were to happen, obviously, but that would be my approach. As opposed to not having any numbers right now
Okay.
to encumber it by.
Second question is, Barry, you had, if you look at your original request for capital equipment, you had said that you had a package deal that you had talked to someone about, but it was more than this. Have you broken that out into, or are you giving up equipment?
No, sir, that deal with both pieces of equipment is split up into the two departments of the sanitation and the streets department. Is where it's broken out into to show where the funding would come from.
That's the chipper,
The
and
chipper
the
and
Bobcat
the
or the
little
skid steer.
steer tractor type equipment. Yes, sir.
And do you feel that you've got enough covered to handle paving repairs and the usual Montreat nightmares of potholes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We went through it with a fine tooth comb and I feel comfortable with it. Yes, sir.
What you gonna do with your old blue tractor? Keep it?
I will probably keep it for just light duty service when we're getting into situations with repairs and stuff like that. Just because with this other piece of equipment, we could extend the use of that little blue tractor another 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years.
But
What-
skid steer is just a little Bobcat, isn't it?
Well, this is a stand-on ditch witch type machine that we could use our current trailer and everything to move around. And it's got the attachments that we could get for this piece of equipment. You can get like 25 different types of attachments, like augers and log grapples and different type buckets for different type jobs and stuff like that. So this can expand our public works in a new way. I think be helpful.
Are you getting any attachments now?
Yes, ma'am. It's going to come with a bucket and a log grapple for moving the large logs and stuff around. Right now, we're having trouble loading the large logs and stuff into the dump trucks with the
Mhm.
backhoe and everything because you can't get the angles right. And this piece just basically just picks them up and puts them right straight in the back. of the
Wow,
truck.
nice.
And it's good for
Cool.
picking up brush. It's got a lot of uses.
And what will become of the current chipper?
The current chipper, I would recommend putting it on gov deals and us gov dealing it out. I've been keeping an eye online. And a lot of chippers in that size range, they're going for $26,000 to $28,000. So we may be able to, there's a possibility, the bottom may fall out of it tomorrow. But there is a possibility to recoup most of the funds on it.
That's great.
While we're talking about that, Chief, you got enough police cars out there to sell how many this year? Do what? Well, are you gonna get rid of some of those cars? It doesn't do us much good to have them sitting.
Yes, sir.
I mean, if we're not gonna drive them and use them, then we need to dispose of them. And that's all I'm asking you to think about.
Which
Okay.
one will it replace? The new one?
One coming in, again, the Ford Escape, that was the one that the building inspector used to
No,
have.
I'm
that
sorry.
we
What,
repurposed.
vehicle will the new one that you have in the capital budget replace?
And keeping with the mileage and the years that y'all designated sometime back, that would be the 2013 Ford SUV. That's the one I'm in. That is approaching right now. I'm at right at 95,000 on that, and we're at the 10-year mark. The 2014 is, I believe, at 86,000. It will hit the 10-year mark at the start of next calendar year. Honestly, I would, if we had an incoming vehicle, I would prefer to replace the 14. It's led a much harder life.
Thanks, Chief.
Mayor and Commissioners, I would add right now, do we need to ask Commissioner Otto if he's got any questions or concerns right now? Kent, can you hear us?
I can.
Do you have any questions at this time?
I guess the only, it's been a little hard hearing some of the other comments, so I hope I'm not redundant on this, but I guess going back to a year or two ago, and sort of the COLA that I keep hearing come up, I thought we were somewhat moving away from that and going to, again, more of a merit-based type of increase. What was, and again, I think the mayor comment on it, but where did that land?
Kent, if I could answer that question, staff made this decision, or I guess I should say, town manager made the call that we would give just straight across the board COLA increases, because in the past, it seems like nearly everyone got the merit. So there was some kind of, you were going to get it. So we just thought, well, we'll just roll it into COLA.
Okay, I mean, I love our staff, administration across the board. You know, I think they do wonderful jobs. I was just curious kind of how that, like I said, I kind of thought we had put that all back into the manager's court and I didn't realize that it sort of came full circle and we've gone back into the COLA. I just didn't realize
Yes.
that.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you.
You want to move on to water?
Can I just ask one question
Sure.
on salary? Letta mentioned the $20 and I guess 10 cents living wage. We don't see the salaries broken down here in terms of hourly wages, or how do our hourly wages of all our various employees stack up against that living wage?
But can I add one thing before you answer that? At $20.10, it's a $41,800 yearly salary.
We have, I think we got one, maybe two that would be under that. Yeah,
It would be under it?
yes, ma'am.
Significantly under, or
No.
right on the edge, or
Probably around the 38,000 mark. So would you say around 38,000, I believe, when I looked at the salaries?
Well, I would suggest we adjust those because that's a policy that was passed a long time ago by the commissioners
Oh, okay.
and, about the living wage. And it's either we're going to change that or we're going to, live up to it.
Yes, sir. We can do that.
And just for Kent's sake, I'm looking at last year's budget and we included a 5% merit and a 2% COLA. So we did do a COLA last year.
That's correct.
I would be curious to know what percent we would need to give to get everybody up to the living wage. But still keep some difference, the same difference.
she'll keep the spacing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know that it's
So-
fair to bring up two employees and not take everybody else up equally.
Just
or
take a
percent
hard
wise.
look at that then.
Yes, sir.
It's your,
We don't need to see a breakdown by employee, but just
okay.
I do actually have a breakdown.
Okay.
That might turn out to be very expensive, but I'd be curious to know.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're saying that in addition to the 4 people that are below a living wage, that we should raise the others commensurately?
to keep the same difference percentage wise between salaries, I think is what you said.
Well, I was saying if the lowest person makes, let's say 38, then what percent do we have to give that person to get he or she up to this amount? And use that percent for everybody. Would be where to start, I think.
Right.
And then if we look at that and it's undoable, not doable, then I think we'll,
Fall back and regroup.
Okay.
Well, let me ask this. Do we have salary ranges on all these jobs? A low, mid, high point?
I'm not aware of a salary.
Letta Jean is shaking her head yes.
There was Letta Jean, but I don't know where it is now.
Similar grades.
Okay. Because the counter to your point, Kitty, is that we begin to blow out those ranges.
where do you get an update on those ranges? Who supplied them?
Yeah.
County?
Probably League of Municipalities, I'm guessing.
You can go to the league, they do a pay study or send out one every year, or you can contract that out and have a pay study done. And what they do is do the job description and then look at the comparable towns and cities in the region as well as the state.
And we need that information.
Whatever Angie finds won't be relevant for today's problem.
I would caution about how they work because the commissioners need to be very aware because you can look at a town that's got 1,100 people in it, but they may not have the tax base that Montreat has, or they may have a higher tax base than Montreat has. So you've got a lot of other variables that you play with as just opposed to what the town across the road's paying. So I would just be.
Can y'all work on that and come back to us with a scenario of what might be equitable?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's right. Thank you.
Take some pressure off of Rachel.
We ready to go to water?
We've got sanitation, I believe, Mr. Mayor. Sanitation, you'll notice there was an increase of $186,100 from the previous year of $136,900, which is a 36% increase. And of course, that includes the cost of living increase, but also the biggest bulk is a capital outlay, wood chipper for that department, as well as increase in the Buncombe County landfill fees and a significant increase in the dumpster, the rental and dumpster cost.
How's that work?
Yeah,
How's the convenience center working?
Right now, the convenience center is working great. We are having to increase our hauls just a little bit. And, right now, just staying on top of making sure it's empty for the next customer is what we're adjusting to. We're having to adjust into the summer crowd.
So with an increase in usage there, are we seeing a decrease in what Drew and his team are doing on Mondays?
Yes, sir. They are actually, their times are leveling out to in between 4 and 4:30. A good quitting time they can clean up equipment, clean up around the dumpsters and then go home instead of finishing up
Great.
around 6 or 6:30 and just having to rush them home.
And what about non-Montreaters using that? Are you able to monitor that?
I'm not seeing a whole lot of use of that. And we've spoke with a few contractors and stuff, but that's been.
That's great.
what are you gonna do about the bear invasion?
Got some ideas.
He doesn't want to share them in public.
No, sir.
We can't touch it. That's up to the state.
Right. I just would caution everybody to be aware around that area right now. Because we have one that's.
I noticed one of the doors on this side of the trash dumpster, not the recycle, was open.
One we've got over there right now, he'll walk up to it and just slide it just like we
Is that
will.
right?
Take his pick. So just
It's
everybody
breakfast.
just make a lot of noise when you go put the trash out.
Yeah.
Oh.
If I could go back to the salaries just for a moment. If we were to raise everybody to the $20.10, would you apply a COLA on top of that? Or that would be in place of the COLA? Unless it was less.
Right.
Right, so if their jump would be, say 99 cents with the COLA, but only 21 cents would bringing them up into, up to the cost of living, then
Still do both.
still do COLA. Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
And I would suggest that it would be the greater of the two.
Also, there was an increase in First at Blue Ridge contracted labor. Thank you. there was an increase in labor fees through the first at Blue Ridge from $12 to $14 an hour. So that's one of the other reasons for the increase. Moving on to recreation, which is primarily the land care and tree board. And that amount stayed the same at $23,050 from the previous year. And that includes the American Chestnut Foundation membership fee and any contributing cost, as well as a $2,500 contribution from the town to the Land Care Committee. Now moving over to water. Projected revenues, as I said earlier, are $400,885. The largest increase will be in the water sales, which we have increased from the current rate per thousand of $4.95 to $6.26 per thousand. That's $1.31 per thousand gallons per month, which is a 26.5% increase over the current water rate. Also, if you look at the average consumption, at 2,389 gallons per residential, that comes out to approximately $3.13 increase per month. It'll cost you more to get a Happy Meal at McDonald's.
And what did you use as your average
Uh,
consumption?
$2,389. And that's for the residential consumption.
That puts us in what range?
Right in the
area-wide?
middle. I'll commend Commissioner Widmer with his work that he's done with the water rate study for the town. And this puts us right in the middle of our neighboring towns of Buncombe County.
Josh, if you can throw my screen up there. Oh, don't worry about it.
Mayor, I can list the towns. Asheville is $5.97. Biltmore Forest, $5.97. Black Mountain, $7.51. Weaverville, $9.78. Woodfin, which is the lowest at $3.40, with the main being $6.26. And the town of Montreat has proposed that rate increase based on those numbers.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the last residential increase was July 1st, 2016. The last institutional increase was July 1st, 2013. So the institutional rate's been steady for 10 years and the residential increase for 7.
I'd like to, I know I've sent to the members of the commission a memo I did. And I again applaud all the work Tom's done, and that's a ton of work. I'd like for at least the commission to I'd like for the commission to consider. Now, let me start by going back to a comment that Mayor Taylor made, former Mayor Taylor, that this is an enterprise fund. It's not our general fund. It's not a tax fund. It's an enterprise fund. It's business. And the state recognized that. It recognizes in its funding requirements of us. And we shouldn't shy away from making some money where making money is appropriate. We have a tremendously large capital investment in this, lots of different kinds of equipment and more capital investment on the way. And, you know, we all live in a country where a return on investment isn't a bad word. And I don't think it's a bad, an ill-considered thought for the commission to consider making a return on our investment. Now, should we do that with our residents? Well, no, I mean, I think we shouldn't be looking to make money off the residents. But I think we should be looking to make money off our institutional users. They're not a home, they're enterprises themselves. They're making revenue out there based on their investment. Our investment, the town's investment, each citizen's investment provides an absolute necessity for their continuation. They can't do without our water. We've gone to great expense to provide their water. In fact, a third of our water capacity is devoted to them. For that reason, as I've suggested in the memo I sent, I believe we should charge our institutional and commercial users, particularly our institutional users, a greater rate than we charge our residential users. I would suggest that we do a step rate structure to promote conservation so that for the first 3 million gallons, each institutional user would be charged 1.25 of what we charge our residential users, 25% more, at least starting out. Over 3 million gallons a year, they would be charged 1.5 times the rate. So that at a $6 rate, just $1.56 more for institutional users up to 3,000 gallons, and another $3 more over 3 million gallons for institutional users. So I think that's appropriate, and I think whatever net revenue we receive from the water fund in the water account based on that, at least as a temporary parking place, I should say we put in our capital improvement accounts for future capital improvements, because we know we've got many coming along the way, particularly in the water area. So,
Commissioners, in order to do that, we're going to need to take a formal action at next meeting to raise those rates. And if that's something you want on the agenda for the next meeting, we'll certainly put it on there.
thank you. I'd like for the commission to consider it, because I think it's good public policy. I think it's only fair to the taxpayers who much.
Okay, I see everybody nodding. Everybody? Okay. We'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting then to raise those rates and to consider the plan that Mason just mentioned.
Let me just make sure I understand what you're proposing. You're proposing that there be a separate institutional rate and that it be 1.25% of the $6.26 up to 3 million gallons annual usage, and anything at 3 million, over 3 million is a 1.5 increase, which is $9.39.
That's what I'm taking a look at. Yes.
Can I just ask how you came to a $3 million or 3 million gallon cutoff point? Why not 2.5, or why not 5 or 4?
It was slightly arbitrary. I will try to fine tune that.
Well, maybe we can discuss it as a group.
It's been a long, hard week, and I did my best to, get these numbers out, and I got the memo out a couple of days ago, but I've not had. But what I'm looking at is for the point of the step rates is conservation, and it's a policy that municipalities throughout North Carolina utilize, and essentially, I'm going to just go to the numbers real quick, and but how I got to it was essentially we've got about my thought was that over 3 million gallons for a user, or somewhere in there, give them a large amount to utilize at the 1.25 rate, but over that, to force them to increase it. And that will promote conservation, but it will also make these larger users, which are going to force by their growth, and we won't hide the ball, the college, very possibly forced by their growth to increase the water capacity that we will need to supply them. To in effect, have them chipping in up front for the capital needs they're going to generate if we're going to make their growth in Montreat possible. And I'm sorry.
I hear you. I'm just thinking through the break points.
Okay.
And
I'm open to that, Tom.
and I would propose that we take it up to 4,999,999, and anything at 5 or over hits that upper limit, because I mean that's pretty substantial.
Okay, I'm open to that.
Well, one of the questions I have is that we're basing this on an annual consumption. We have different accounts, or if we have multiple meters for these different institutions that we have. So I'm trying to figure out how our software, if it can include that. Where did we get that? $499.99.
I think we'd have to base it on historical experience. So on the previous year.
So 1 meter that would generate that would be charged this 1.25. But another meter that doesn't generate.
No, I would think that you would do it overall institutionally. We have we have 6 institutional accounts. The college, MRA, Christ Community Church, BGEA, William Black, and who am I forgetting? Post office.
And Billy Graham.
Yeah, I said BGEA. So I would think that you would look at all of the accounts under the auspices of each of those institutions. BGEA, Christ Community Church, and the post office each have 1 account. William Black has 2 accounts. The college has 11 accounts. I'm sorry, 16 accounts, and MRA has 31 accounts. So we would look at that as a whole, as a group. Because if we looked at each and every single individual account that makes up the college, for example, there's nothing over 3 million or 5 million.
Yeah, that's what I had contemplated. Well, I'll work, Angie, with you and with Tom and Ben, and we'll figure out how to do it. But my contemplation was what Tom was thinking, that we take it as a whole. So
I'm just trying to see how, when we read individual meters, if it was all one master meter feeding this, it would be very simple. But when you're looking at different meters there, I would also caution the commissioners that you have 10 days for the public to review the proposed budget. We're coming up on our June 8th. It will be our public hearing. So I don't know if staff can get together and put these numbers together and get an accurate water sales revenue for the projections. Now, one good thing about rates for a community across North Carolina, the only rate you have to set in North Carolina prior to July 1 is your tax rate. Municipalities have the luxury of raising rates, lowering rates, adjusting fees, whatever, throughout the calendar year. But so
can we not accept the budget as you've recommended and adopt that budget with any modifications that we might make based on the water rate that you have proposed. And then at a later time, institute the industrial rates, which will give Angie and give
Absolutely.
y'all time to talk to the software people and make sure that the new software will do that. And then we need to come up with a plan before we do the institutional, I would think, on how to implement
That's
it.
what I would recommend, and it may be that our existing software is. I don't think we know that answer right now. I just think it's a lot more study needs to go into it. I understand where you're coming from, but how do we build these separate meters? What rate, when one meter may reflect only several tens of thousands of gallons in a year? Well,
Is it possible that we base it on historical data? I mean, we know what the college and the conference center have used, and we could base our rate on that.
can,
I mean, if we,
it's just,
Yeah, to give you a projection, an income projection based on a three-tiered system, residential, institutional, let's call it 1, institutional 2. We could do that pretty quickly, especially based on the data that Rachel has come up with and that I've incorporated into the spreadsheet. But whether it's doable software-wise is a different matter.
right. So
In worst case, do an institute, just a single institutional, just one rate institutional 1.25. And that surely we can do. And,
yeah, yes.
and we're worried about a,
Well, I don't know that we can.
It's just a matter of the gas used.
Is the what?
For
Total consumption.
Up to the $4 million point. I don't know that the software can detect that part.
But could we not, as Kitty said, base it on historical? What did they do last year and establish the rate? I mean, if you look at usage, there are 2 large users. One that used $3.6 million gallons last year, and another that used 5.1 million gallons. So I would think that we could go in and put a rate for the 5.1 million gallon user, and then the 1.25 rate for all the other 5 institutional users. Could we not?
As Mason said, though, this is, a lot of this is conserving water. So at what point are we going to determine if the college has really reduced their amount and changed their rate? You can't base that on historical knowledge because history hadn't been made yet if they reduce it. You see what I'm saying? Didn't you
No.
say
okay,
it was?
well, I don't think we're gonna solve it today because I'm now totally confused myself. So, but I'd like to work with, if we can't get it done, we can't get it done, but if we can try.
Okay. I just caution that 10-day period.
but if I understand it correctly, Rachel, you can go in and put a amount on each of these 16 accounts for MRA, let's say.
I believe so.
So you just put it
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, and they would just have to be, that amount would have to be added to each one of those accounts instead, like replace the other one. That designation, I guess,
Right.
you would say, not that
And
amount.
then if they are conserving, then next year it's we can readjust it.
Okay. Where do we go now, Ben?
Well, I guess I need to ask you, or ask the commissioners. Do we need to adjust anything right now with, as it relates to the water revenue? The water expenditures? I can talk about that right now. And what we're doing is the allocation, indirect allocation from the water fund to the general fund is 0.625, which is a contribution to the general fund, $82,988. And the capital outlay is
$50,000, and that's to purchase new automated meters, water meters, so we'll get a more accurate reflection on the actual consumption. The older the meters get, the less accurate they are. And so this will make a good headway getting the correct revenues for our town. Now, having
My
said
only
that,
comment, Ben, is I'm not sure the indirects are enough. And I know we can't solve that in the next 10 days or maybe even the next 2 months. But at a point, I think we need to do a study in the coming year of the indirects.
I agree,
And-
100%.
And I didn't see depreciation involved in the expenses. Ultimately, we've got to get depreciation or another factor, an accurate factor to make sure we're budgeting for appropriate capital improvements.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And again, I know we can't do that right now. I know this is the best we can do with the circumstances we have. Just knowing that that's an end in view,
Yes, sir.
that I think we're fine with the way we got it.
So if I'm hearing correctly, we'll stick with the numbers we've got now. We'll study this more in depth and fine tune it. And then the council can take action in the future once those hard numbers are available and we can implement it into our system.
So
Yeah.
what that means is an across the board increase of water rates to the 626
That's correct.
that you, and not an institutional rate.
At this time, if I'm hearing correct.
But we're still going to look at maybe a bump in this.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Let me just, in lieu of thinking, or in lieu of doing something, but as part of our thinking process, raising our water rate from 495 to 626 is a 26% increase. Raising it by 1.25 over the new rate for institutional is a 58% increase. So that would be raising it from $4.95 to $7.83. So I think we need to think that through in terms of its impact. Maybe do it in a step process for our institutions. But something we can talk about.
Any other comments, commissioners, on the budget? So we're going to look at those salary adjustments,
Yes, sir.
and then the water rates by steps going to be discussed in the future. I mean,
understand.
elements going to be come up there. Was there anything else pending that we did not finish talking about? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the budget work session.
I'll move that we adjourn the budget work session.
You know, the person who always wants to get out of here quickest is the one who makes the first motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second from Commissioner Fouché. Discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Angie, Barry, Chief. Thank all of y'all for all the work on the budget.
Thank you all. Thank you.